Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 49 of the Hideout. Got another awesome panel here today and some exciting announcements that we've been making throughout the week. So, really excited to have a few awesome projects on today to talk about everything they're building. But first, let me give you a quick introduction of myself for those of you who don't know us or what we're building. My name is Nick Frontera. I am one of the founders of Apollo Entertainment, the studio behind Satoshiverse and the newly named Legions 2029 game. I've been in the Web3 space since 2017. For those of you who don't know about Satoshiverse, it's a blockchain-themed superhero universe that we started developing back in 2020 with DC and Marvel comic artist and crypto artist Jose Delbo, who is a 90 years old in the next 2 weeks. So really crazy beginning, but for the last 3 years, we've been developing the project and the game, which features currently 2 avatar collections, and our game, which we've been developing for the last 2 years, Legions 2029, which we've had some exciting announcements about recently that I'll get into quickly. But Legions 2029 is a fast-paced third-person hack and slash PC game. So, if you think about elements of God of War from a combat perspective, elements of Diablo and World of Warcraft from like item progression and character progression, and then elements of games like Hades and other roguelikes for the gameplay loop, all kind of coming together in a new blockchain-enabled game concept. That's Legions 2029. Don't take my word for it. You can currently play it with our testnet alpha for free. You just have to go to the website and register, and you can create an account and play the game. So I'd love for everybody to experience it for themselves. But the important announcement that we just made, and we'll be talking a lot more about in the coming weeks, is that we will be going live on mainnet with our mainnet alpha version on Polygon proof of stake very soon. So we'll be giving exact dates and details in the very near future, but we're excited to be joined today by some of our partner communities in that launch. And what that means, in addition to all that we've got coming with the game itself, we've got some really awesome stuff coming for the launch. And so for the launch, you're going to be able to play the game for free. You'll be able to create a custom avatar. So we have our avatar creator. If you haven't experienced that before, check out the pinned tweet at the top. It's got all the information. But through that avatar creator, you'll be able to create a customized avatar. And what's special about our launch is that customized avatar is going to have a patch of the logo from all of our 40 partner communities that we're getting ready to launch with. So we're going to be announcing those communities in the next several weeks leading up to the launch. But you're going to see more and more projects that you'll be able to add their awesome logos, kind of bringing communities together in this launch. So we're super excited about that. We're calling it a play to mint avatar collection. Essentially what that means is you'll be able to get in there and create your avatar totally free. All you have to do is get to level 5, which takes about 30 minutes to an hour of gameplay, depending on how well you know the game and that quick learning curve. But as soon as you get to level 5, you'll be able to mint it for free, and then you'll have a really cool customized avatar that you'll be able to use along the way while playing the game. If you register now or anytime before we go live, there's also going to be a very special clothing texture that you'll be able to get and equip to your avatar when you mint it. So just a little thing, if you're on the fence or you haven't already created a Legions 2029 account, you just go to game.satoshiverse.io, you create an account, and you'll be all set for when we go. And if you want, you can play the testnet version where we currently have some really good prizes and get ready for the game launch. So all the details are in that pinned tweet. I know that's a little longer than we usually do it, but we've had some really exciting announcements. So if anyone is watching this and wants to learn more, check out the pinned tweet, check out the game, get in there and register now. But that's it for Legions 2029. Let's talk about our awesome panelists and the projects that they're going to be having or that they're building. And all of these projects, as I mentioned, are going to be part of our launch communities, participating communities. So super, super excited to have 3 projects that we love up here on stage today. Why don't we start with our friends at Wizardia? Ryan, how you doing over there?
Yeah, I'm real good. Thanks for asking there, Nick, and thanks for having me on another Twitter Spaces with you guys. I've said it many times, but outside Wizardia, you guys are my all-time favorite projects, and I love the intro you had and what you guys have got coming up with these Legionnaires. So definitely tickles me in all the right places. As for Matt and Carl, it's good to connect with you guys, and I'm really, really excited to see what you guys have to say and what's happening in your parts of the world. But to give everybody a bit of a rundown on myself and Wizardia, I've been here for almost 2 years now, and I'm sure everyone can agree. But the crypto and the NFT space is absolutely wild, and that's what I really, really love about it. You can probably hear with my accent, I am Australian, but I'm living here in Lithuania. So definitely got some multicultural aspects, and something big that we've been able to do at Wizardia, Nick, that I'm not sure if you've seen yet, but we did actually very recently release our Android app. There's still a few bugs in it, and we're kind of working through them, but it's really, really cool. I advise everyone to jump on and check it out. Once you get the feel of it and have a look through it, you'll understand that Wizardia was designed to be on mobile. It's just got the full flow, very immersive, and we've also been able to release an entirely new rarity of wizard, and this is uncommon. Now, the best thing about these uncommon wizards, once you download the app and have a bit of a play through it, complete the tutorial, we're actually going to give you 4 of them for free. So you can continue to play the game, have a little bit of fun, and actually play for free as well. So jump on in, check it out, and don't forget to join the Telegram group. If you have any bugs or anything that you guys come up with, let us know so we can work on it. But that's a bit of a rundown on where we're at, and looking forward to seeing what the other guys have to say.
I love it. Well, thanks so much for being here. That sounds awesome. I played Wizardia on the browser, and it was a really cool and fun experience. I can only imagine. It did definitely seem made for mobile. So I love that now you'll be able to experience there, and definitely excited to try it out. I'll have to get myself an Android first, but definitely love where that's going. Let's jump over to Carl at 247 or 24/7. I screwed this up last time. 24/7 Comics.
Totally understandable. If you read it as this, it does say 247, but we are 24/7 because we're in Web3 24/7 like the rest of us. But hey, everybody, Nick, as always, good to see you. Spencer, thanks for having us. Matt, the folks at Wizards, super excited just to be here today. Like mentioned earlier, Satoshi Verse is OG, and you guys also kindred spirits as comic book fans and artists, and so we are here to support. Over here at 24/7 Comics, I feel like we've been away from Web3 for a little bit. We took about the last 6 weeks and actually launched a Kickstarter campaign, which I think we'll touch more on later. And in a way, we just realized, because of just the market being the crazy place it is, we're in a softer space and we need to onboard new folks. And so with the Kickstarter, it's kind of like our olive branch to the traditional comic space, which has kind of, in essence, in recent history, been a little against the whole Web3 space for a multitude of reasons, which I think needs to change. And so we basically took on that venture and had a relatively successful launch, during a macro bear market. And now we're back in Web3, getting ready to kind of re-engage our audience and get back into the mix of things. So super excited to be back on Spaces again and warming up while we get back into the action. So thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for being here, and congratulations on the Kickstarter campaign. I was following along, and it's awesome what you guys were able to do. So very excited to see how that develops and everything that's coming there. So definitely recommend everybody follow closely, as 24/7 is doing some awesome stuff in the intersection between comics and NFTs and Web3. And last but definitely not least, we've got our friends at Broadside. I think we got Matt over there. You feel free. I know we got two of you guys on stage, so I don't know, whoever wants to talk, feel free, but give us a quick introduction, and then we will jump into the questions with Spencer.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for having me up. Yeah, this is Matt, one of the co-founders of Broadside. I brought the main account up just for the engagement, but they're both me, so don't worry, you won't have to listen to two of us. But yeah, for those that don't know Broadside minted a year ago tomorrow. We set out to create one of the most expansive sort of storytelling projects in Web3. We minted 7,000 individual heroes that all came with 11 episodes of a story starring them as the hero that you were you could claim as NFTs over the 10 months that followed mint. And then over the summer, you could merge and bind those episodes into a one-of-one book featuring your Broadside character on the cover and named as the hero throughout. It's a story about 7,000 kids who love playing this AR game in the future called Broadside. They want to change it and they can't, and they decide to hack it, and they get in a lot of trouble with the company that owns it, and they end up sort of banding together and overthrowing the company and taking control of the game and sort of ushering in a new decentralized economic paradigm. So it's kind of this weird decentralized story that we were looking for a way to tell for a long time. My background has been in sort of crypto and NFTs and decentralized tech since 2011 when I was with BitTorrent. I was CMO at Kraken. I helped start a company called Palm NFT Studio, and worked on a bunch of different NFT projects over time. But Broadside was something we were really excited to get out. And then over the last year, it's really morphed into this really, really engaged Metaverse community. Our community built a space called the Broadside Rave Bunker in the open Metaverse in December of last year, which quite quickly became the most visited space in all open Metaverses. And seeing that sort of really inspired myself and my co-founder Vector to not only deliver on what we said we were going to do, but really start building for our community and building in the direction that they were taking us. So in January of next year, or sort of Q1 of next year, maybe not January, we'll see. We're launching a new platform called Metaverse Action Figures, which is going to be a new platform and a new way to use Broadside characters in the open Metaverse. It's built on ERC 6551. You'll be able to take your Broadside characters and indeed other characters from other collections. We started working on that this week, into over 100,000 Web3 games, Metaverse spaces. You'll be able to equip them with different 6551 objects, weapons, armor. And we think this is a new era for sort of the open Metaverse and Web3 gaming and sort of culture generally. The kind of the spatial internet is definitely starting to emerge, and we're really excited about that. And we've really just been following what our community's been doing, and sort of finding the fun in the Metaverse. So yeah, we're really excited to be building. We love partnering with other communities. We're really honored to be one of the first communities partnering with Satoshiverse. You'll be able to get your Broadside patch in the game, and that's pretty sick. And yeah, looking forward to doing more stuff together.
Amazing. Well, really, really cool to see everybody building, everybody releasing some awesome things in the very near future. I'm personally super excited about the next several months of what we're going to see specifically in the gaming and metaverse side of this space. I think this has been a rough year for everybody. I think most of us have been building, but I know, as holders and consumers and all the people who kind of participate from the outside and are in these communities, I think it's been a crazy year. And I think it's sometimes hard to see what all that work that's going on behind the scenes to make next year very special. And so, I'm excited for what's coming. I've been just more and more seeing awesome projects. And as we're reaching out to all of our partners, for this launch, it's so cool to reconnect and really see how much everybody's getting done. So gives me a very bullish perspective on what's coming. And yeah, definitely excited to get into these questions and talk more about it. So with that, let's introduce Spencer, and then let's take it away on the questions.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, my name is Spencer Vogel. I'm the business development manager with Apollo Entertainment and Satoshiverse. I've been with the team here for the last 2.5 years. And I am hosting the space today and asking the questions. So just to get a little bit into the format here, first we're going to do questions for everyone in the group. I'll call on someone to start, and feel free to just jump in after that and and keep the conversation flowing. And then we'll get into some individual questions for each of our guests, and then some more everyone questions at the end if we have time. And then at the end of our space, make sure to stick around. We're going to be doing a giveaway for one of our Satoshiverse collectibles. So for everyone who is still around at the end, we're going to do a random giveaway. So moving on to our questions here, maybe Carl, you can start us off for this first one. This is a little bit of a broad one, but how do you see NFTs and Web3 technologies impacting traditional industries like art, music, and gaming in the next decade?
I think we're seeing some of it now. It's a little behind the scenes. Ticketing is obvious. I think if you look at even last year's Super Bowl, they did issue NFTs across the board. And a lot of folks spun up wallets. They just didn't really know it yet. I think the part that's going to be a challenge right now is it's who becomes the leader. It's almost like kind of like when we had like the Blu-ray versus like I think the laser disc battle. Obviously Blu-ray kind of rose to, or HD, I believe HD disc, whatever. That was a big battle, and then Blu-ray actually rose to the top. I feel like amongst all the layer twos, Polygon feels like a big lead into what's happening, but then there's also a lot of layer twos like Base and Optimism that are actually catching up for different reasons as well. And so I think until there's like a full comprehensive integration, NFTs can actually serve a lot, not across just ticketing, but also in true ownership. And in a weird way, as much as decentralization is what we're all fans of, I do feel like there's sense of centralization coming back into play as people want to be part of these different ecosystems. So I think that's kind of how I see it impacting. I think we're still very early, but I think we're also right around the corner when it comes to like the mainstream. Now, when it comes to art, I do feel like it's been a great place for artists to be able to earn, not only on primary but secondary sales. Music, I haven't really been tracking, and then in gaming, I think I look forward to hearing more about 6551, which is a kind of something that I think is now starting to leak over into the art side, but it seems like it's pretty active in the gaming space already. So that's kind of my insight so far. Again, I've been away for a little bit, so I'm still catching up. So I'm really more looking forward to learning on this conversation than anything else. So I'll kick us off with that.
Unreal. Something I never thought too much about was the ticketing system. It is, once you mention it, it is a really obvious development that we can go, and something that's super exciting. And a bit further on from ticketing, something that really, really gets me jazzed is things like, exclusive access. So we're going to have new experiences in the future. I did recently write an article for Wizardia called NFTs, the Sleeping Giant. This article pretty much sums up exactly the question that you're asking, Spence. But what I mean by, exclusive access is, when a new song comes out by your favorite artist, you're going to have access to that, albums, even artwork from, your favorite designer, even fully interactive experiences combined with a new ticketing system that you've just discussed on. I do understand there's already been a few Metaverse live shows, which is somewhat interesting. It's a whole new kettle of fish, a whole new world for people like us and people in our industry to be able to tap into. And it also does bring together a whole bunch of new communities like Bored Ape Yacht Club and new partnerships. I don't know if you guys and everyone listening, all the girls here as well, have seen, but very recently, Binance and Cristiano Ronaldo just released an NFT collab where some of the NFTs in the collection give the owner the opportunity to join Ronaldo in a training session. Now, if you ask me, that's a hell of an experience. And to have that as an NFT or, essentially a right is really exciting. And I do apologize, Matt. I'm not much of a soccer fan. I can hear your English accent, but it's not just a big thing for Aussies, but the whole concept is absolutely incredible. And that's something that I'm really looking forward to in the future, is immersing into these new experiences and these new communities.
Yeah, 100%. I can definitely add to this a little bit. I mean, I think there's so many potential applications for NFTs. It's really limitless, and I think that sort of fueled so much of the hype we saw in 2021. Is essentially every single use case was kind of priced into the enthusiasm we all had, and that enthusiasm went away. The market went away this year, but people are still building all of that stuff, and it's going to come back. There's every single company in every single vertical has at least thought about this, and a lot of companies are building some really interesting stuff. And they started building in 2021, and they don't care about OpenSea or the floor price. They're building something, like you said, that could be a really fun kind of experience linked to a ticket that you've got for a sporting event, and sort of those use cases. And I think we will see all of this stuff just really, really scale up once a few more of those things start coming out, and everybody's sort of able to join the dots and say, oh wait, NFTs are a thing, and they're just sort of everywhere. And that's how most other technology is scaled. Like, there wasn't a huge kind of crazy speculation rush from retail consumers on cloud computing. It just sort of happened over a few years. So I think we see a lot of the stuff in crypto gets distorted by speculation, and people are like, oh, it's amazing, and then oh, look, the price is down, it's dead, and the technology in the background doesn't care. It's just people are building anyway. If there's really a use case, then people really build, and there's so much interesting stuff being built. I think the most interesting thing for me about NFTs, it doesn't really matter what the industry is that you can have these network aware or context aware social objects that do different things in different contexts, and you can sort of apply that in a number of ways. Like the way that we think about it with what we're building is your broadside characters will be able to have weapons, for example, and if you take your weapon into a game like Nifty Island or an open metaverse game where you need a gun, it will work as a gun, and it will be skinned to just the way you skinned it, etc. But it will work in that game the way it's supposed to work. If you take that same thing into a rave space, it might fire glow sticks in the air. So having objects that are context aware, they know where they are, and they can give you access or utility. And that, your same thing, that could be a ticket, and if you take it to the game, it lets you in, but then it also lets you into a private metaverse space to meet with the team or something after the game. Like, there's no ends to the application of that idea, but it's brand new and it wasn't possible before, and that's the stuff that I'm really, really excited about.
Yeah, kind of echoing, what everyone said. I totally agree. And I mean, for me, being in the space really early back in 2017, I think the things that that we originally talked about with NFTs are actually starting to resurface now, and a lot of the use cases are being focused on rather than kind of the hype and speculation that took hold, late 2020, early 2021. And so for me, whenever I kind of think about, okay, like, what is an NFT? Why is it going to be useful? What is crypto, even more generally? What is the blockchain, and why is it going to be useful? I always just think, really two things fundamentally. Is there a use case tied to digital ownership that improves the experience or the product, right? Like, how does digital ownership improve the experience? And how does free transferability improve the experience, right? And so I think that if it can check either of those two boxes or both of those two boxes, I think you have a real use case there. And so when we jump into art, music, gaming, there's 1,000 ways that you could answer those questions in the positive, but there's also a lot of ways that you probably don't need Web3 for it. And sometimes Web3, and I've seen lots of concepts where, you're kind of throwing the label at it just to kind of be part of that movement. And I think we saw a lot of that in 2021, 2022, and we're starting to see less of that now. I think companies are asking, is this something where it actually makes sense to own it, right? Like digital ticketing has been a thing forever. Digital ticketing through NFTs makes sense in some situations because there may be an ownership layer. You want to own it as a collectible, like those Super Bowl tickets, right? People pay big money for used tickets, and a lot of those tickets just get ripped up and thrown away, right? But or some people frame it with a photo and then they sell it later, 20 years later. There's a certain collectability component to that. So ownership, digital ownership means something there. Whereas a ticket to my local concert may not be as collectible, and you might not need that to be an NFT, and just a digital ticket would suffice. But if you want that second layer, digital transferability, right? Free transferability. You don't want to be bound to any one marketplace and its terms. You want the options. You want to be able to do that in a decentralized way and potentially have downstream type of, royalties or whatever. That's another box to check. So whenever I'm evaluating a project, especially in the mainstream space, those are kind of the lenses I look at it through. I think for art, obviously for digital artists, it was a revolution, right? It essentially created an entire new product class for them, life-changing for many digital artists. I think, that's, to me, that's the most obvious and just like revolutionary thing that we've seen come out of the NFT space so far. I think music is super exciting. I think it's just starting to scratch the surface on what's possible with music and gaming. Obviously, that's what got me into the space. That's what I'm excited about. I think when we're talking about, back ending the technology and truly creating like the vast majority of the transactions that people are going to be doing, I think you're going to see, at least on the entertainment side of things, it's going to be Web3 gaming and the metaverse that really take the cake in terms of, use of the blockchain to secure digital assets. Just because I think Web3 gaming and the metaverse, more Web3, or I'm sorry, gaming and the metaverse are where we already see this concept of ownership so prevalently on display. People think, they play a game and they own everything, when they really don't, as a technical matter, and there isn't that free transferability, and you don't have those ownership rights, those property rights. So I think that to me is just like the most, here's the use case that's already proven. Here's the way that the technology will improve it. We just have to figure out a way to connect the dots, in a way that's user friendly and not going to undermine, some of the broader goals of the gaming industry to keep things fun and exciting. And, yeah, so that's kind of how I see it, but always through those two lenses.
Awesome. Well, if nobody else has anything to add, we can move on to individual questions here. So my first individual question here is to Matt. So obviously you guys are very locked in and in step with your community. And I was wondering, what are the biggest benefits and challenges of developing a new IP alongside your community?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think look, it's amazing. Like before I got involved in NFTs, like in tech, if you're developing anything, the ways you go and get user feedback from people was you put an ad on Craigslist saying like, come and check out this new product and we'll give you like a Amazon gift card or something. And you get 10 people in who had no idea, or you'd get a handful of a small user group, if you were lucky, who were able to sort of riff on something with. With NFTs, you have a very invested community from the start who want your project to succeed as much as you do. And that is a gift. Like, there's just no better way to get feedback early and to really understand your users and what they want. It's also a curse, right? If you're building in public and things change and you pivot and you've said you're going to do one thing and suddenly you can't, and we've seen this on a number of projects in the space, that doesn't always go down well, right? Or especially if you really said you really over-promised something. So I think it's great. It's fantastic. You've just got to be very, very you've got to be very sure of yourself in terms of what can you actually deliver. Like before we minted on Broadside, we knew exactly what we were going to do, and we kind of set this path for a year, and we made sure that we had enough money to finance this before mint. And it's like, if we sell one token, we're still going to do this because we've said that we're going to do it. And that's the thing I think you need to do, and it's the community, but also increasingly, SEC scrutiny and the sort of regulatory environment around NFTs is inevitably going to change as things grow. And this will become something that I think people have to take, more seriously. We've seen a lot of bad actors in this space taking advantage of communities and taking advantage of this kind of, this sort of Wild West environment that we're in. But delivering what you say you are going to deliver, it becomes so important in a way that, if I got 10 people to look at an Amazon get an Amazon gift card to look at something, and then I change my product entirely the next week, those 10 people don't care. They're shopping on Amazon. They've forgotten what I even showed them. Your NFT community is not like that. They're going to care. And it doesn't mean you can't change, doesn't mean you can't pivot. It just means you've got to communicate with them. You've got to bring them along for the ride. You've got to own your failures and your weaknesses just as much as your successes and your strengths. And that, that's I think the thing I love the most. Like, you have to be vulnerable and real with your community. But what I found is that means your community genuinely becomes a group of friends. Like, you become friends with them, they become friends with each other. You are on a journey together. And there's a lot more you can do with that. There's this sort of untapped potential of Web3 as a sort of community organization tool that I don't think we've seen at scale yet. And we're doing some things next year we haven't announced yet, where we want to make an impact on the world that you'll be able to see from space if we pull it off, by leveraging Web3 to organize communities in this way around things that really, really matter to everybody on the planet. Like, that stuff is all possible. But it's hard. It's not easy. And we've seen way too many people come in the space, say they're going to do one thing and then not do it, or do something quite different, and let people down. So, it's like I said, it's a gift and a curse, but it's definitely more of a gift from my point of view.
I totally agree. That's I think that's the curse that we all have to live with when we're building in Web3 is just kind of that fine line, that balance of overpromising and under-delivering, and just making sure you do what you said you would. I think having integrity in what we're doing in the space, that's the most important thing. So thank you, Matt. So our next individual question is for Ryan. So Wizardia has a huge focus on lore and storytelling. How important do you think storytelling is for the success of a game?
Yeah, great question, and great response from you, Matt, on that last one too. I was really excited to see how you'd respond to that. So thanks for your knowledge. In regards to storytelling, straight up, I think it's one of the most important things we can do. It creates immersion, it engages players, and it gives people a reason to keep playing, to come back. We all know that a good story does create memorable moments, things that you can look back on and laugh and know you enjoyed. And when you have those moments, it becomes a way to connect with people around the world, to connect with friends if you live in a different city, which is why a lot of people nowadays, they jump online and play a bit of Fortnite or COD or something like that, just so they can stay in touch, immerse with the game, chat with their friends. And it's the same reason of why we watch particular TV shows or, movies like Marvel, the DC universe, why we read books like Game of Thrones. The lore itself is like the drug and the story is the buzz. You can't have one without the other. And something we've actually noticed since going mobile is storytelling is even more important. We find players have a much shorter attention span when they're on mobile, probably because of things like TikTok, Instagram, and all those short reels. So it's really important to grab their attention quickly, keep them engaged. And an in-depth storyline, an in-depth lore is one of the best ways to do it, because we all know everyone loves a good short video and a storytelling moment. It's what allows them to experience the game's story in a really linear and cinematic way. I know, Nick, you're a big fan of God of War, and one of the Satoshi versus boss was based on this kind of this moment, and the whole cinematic story you have, that's what captures people's attention and really gives the gets the hair to stand up, or the tingles down the back of your spine. That's what makes you want to play that next level and keep coming back, and then get your friends involved as well. And in our space, NFT and crypto, even though it's getting bigger and bigger, it's still growing. So every referral, every new person that steps into our world is a good thing. And the best way to do that is to have a captivating way and a captivating lore to get them in. So that's what I think the importance of lore is in storytelling.
Love it. Yeah, we totally agree. I mean, we're coming from a comic background, and storytelling is very important to us in the Stoshiverse, and everything that we do is kind of fueled from where we originally started from. So love that. And then our final individual question, is for Carl here. So you touched on this a little bit in your intro, but 24/7 Comics recently closed a successful Kickstarter for its comic Evermind, with Sean Chen and Daniel Wu. So what was the motivation behind using Web 2 Rails to sell an IP that already has a fan base in Web 3?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, actually. And let me answer in a couple ways. I think one, just kind of like parlaying what Matt was saying, is number one, doing what we said we were going to do. Obviously, I think with the market downturn, it was a very easy conversation to be had to say to our community, hey, we're not going to launch, at the time it was called Project Genesis, because the market conditions. But for us, we just felt, due to our holders, to have to keep progress, right? And then second, when it comes to storytelling, it's not really just about, like, for me, like the storytelling of the different IPs that we hold within the ecosystem, but also storytelling within our company and like our ethos, right? Like, will we let the market determine our fate and our promises? No, we're gonna do our best to proceed forward and launch this project regardless. And that's exactly what we did. After doing some research into the space, we did do a few launches as far as different comics, but it just wasn't our main core IP. So we felt like at the end of the day, like I mentioned earlier, we do need to, and sorry for jumping ahead, we needed to go and recruit at this point. We need to look outside the Web3 community, who there may be consumers with better attitude and are still into collecting. And we found that in the kind of comic book convention space, where as much as new wallets or even NFT transactions are at all-time low, comic book convention attendance is at an all-time high. Like if you went to San Diego Comic-Con or New York Comic-Con, they had probably 20% higher attendance than other previous years. And you saw that because of the movie studios not having their big presence there. When you talk to the vendors there, people are selling 40% more than what they usually sell. And so to me, like, that signaled a market that was healthy and a place that we should go and introduce ourselves. So in a weird way, as much as we had some legacy in Web3, we were brand new when it comes to the Web2 traditional comic book space. In fact, if we were to go in and say we were coming from the Web3 space, I think we would have been heavily rejected. So we kind of went in with a really covert mission to say, hey, we are a new publisher. Hey, we are a new comic book. And we basically introduced ourselves with a very kind of subtle, 10K mark to try to introduce our comic into the Kickstarter space. We ended up raising around 41K, which I think, to us, we were hoping for more. Obviously, when you look in to the scope of the Web3 space, you would say, oh man, that's not much. But I guess apparently in the Kickstarter space, 41K is a relatively successful Kickstarter campaign for a first timer. And so what we also learned was and it's funny going into it with the scope of like onboarding folks. We were hoping that there would be a lot more crossover, but the truth is we only had like maybe like a 2% crossover as far as folks that were in the Web3 space that actually converted into the Web2 space and vice versa. And so it's been really interesting for us right now as a team, as we talk about our next steps. We realize now we have a hand in the Web3 community that's a little bit stagnant right now. It's kind of on standby, waiting for us to, talk about our next moves, and also, inquiries of folks that still really care about the project, wanting to know what our next announcement is. And then we also have a hand in the pot of the traditional comic book space, which in a weird way has been very patient. We've been, proactively making announcements on our Kickstarter campaign. Folks are very engaging. They're responding to our ask. And so, we kind of have to ask ourselves, like, do we want to bring these two worlds together? Do we want to kind of ignite the fire back in the Web3 space in a way, while we're manufacturing and doing behind the scenes stuff for the Web2 folks? So yeah, I think we don't have a clear answer yet. I think if anything, that's kind of what we're spending a lot of our brain powers on as a team. But yeah, that was kind of the motivation. But what we've learned is that these two markets are very separate. Our hope is our next moves, and over time, will continue creating more crossover and giving people more reasons to, touch upon the two worlds. We love both worlds, and so that's kind of what we're seeing as the next step. We're kind of deliberating right now, so it's a good time for you guys to ask that question, and maybe I'll ask the question back to you guys. Like, do you guys see opportunities that we may not be seeing to bring the traditional comic book space in with the Web3 space, or are the two worlds better treated apart right now?
I think so, 100%. I mean, like you guys, got involved in this, and one of my early impressions of the Web3 space, and part of, I think, why we were able to launch Jose and for him to have the success he did early on, was because there was such a disconnect between comics and the Web3 space. And there shouldn't have been. I mean, there were tons of Web3 native people who loved comics and who loved those IPs, those traditional comic IPs, and really who embraced the idea of comics. And then, I mean, you look at just about every major PFP project had a cartoony feel, and so these are people who grew up on cartoons and comics, who it's definitely the right demographic for Web3. And so there was a ton of crossover, I think, with Web3 users and comics. I think what we saw, early on was that there was a lot of pushback from the traditional comic industry, because I don't think they really understood what we were trying to accomplish here. And I don't think there were use cases that were really showcasing the potential of comics in Web3. But when you kind of look at, not streaming, but like digitally available, subscription models, which is what a lot of, distributors were obviously, and publishers were doing with digital versions of their comics and older IP, you had, sure, it would be cool to read the comics, but, there's something to that tactile feeling of, I'm going to flip through a comic book that comic collectors love. So I think digital, was really for more of the super fans of IPs who really wanted to consume a lot of comics, because it really lacked the kind of collectability aspect of comics. So for me, what was really interesting to see in the early days was, for example, Vivi and what they were doing with Marvel and DC in terms of taking, old comic books and essentially republishing them as actual tangible digital editions that were ownable and collectible on the blockchain. And so, I think that was like the first step in a very long staircase of things that we could do to enhance those digital projects. But it was a very important step, because it kind of was a proof of concept that people were willing to pay more. They were willing to consume. They started to attribute a different feeling with that digital asset than they did with a subscription model type of digital asset. They said, you know what, I own Superman #1, right? I own the digital version. I have one of 10,000 that will ever be produced of the digital version of Superman #1, rather than I have access to read it, which is a completely different value prop, right? So kind of going back to that lens that we were talking about before, does ownability and free transferability make this, a better product? Does it change the value proposition? 100% when it came to digital comics. And then you kind of look at like what you guys are doing, where you have more, you can do huge IPs, but you can also use NFTs as a launch pad for, smaller IPs, which we've kind of seen not necessarily, through comic books, but cartoon and comic projects do like crazy. And I think a natural extension of those comic-based IPs is to start to tell stories in the Web3 space through comics. So, we saw with CryptoPunks, there was the Punks comic. With Bored Ape, there was an Ape comic. And you saw, I think Valiant picked it up in the early days. I'm not sure actually what happened with that, but it was exciting to see these cartoon-based IPs start to create comics. And so I think, I still think we're just scratching the surface. What I'd love to see isn't necessarily just the combination of physical and digital. There's, for example, I think that I don't love the word phygital, but I like what it represents, kind of having an NFT twin of a physical object. I think that's awesome. And I think that, as things like VR and AR start to become a little bit better hardware wise, we're going to see some awesome things in the comic industry, especially on the AR side of being able to read a physical comic book with AR glasses on and just experience it in a completely different way. But I think that there are areas where NFTs will enable us to do really cool things with that too. Of course, you can just add AR to a physical comic book and you don't need NFTs for that. But I think there are going to be interesting ways that we can have digitally native IPs actually back into physicals with AR and kind of like a animated or movie component that you'll start to see, okay, I own this NFT. Now I'm able to claim this physical version that's AR enhanced. And now I have something that's special. I have something that's very different than comic books of the past. And, so I think where the technologies meet, where digital and physical meet, there's going to be a really cool intersection. And I don't think anyone in the traditional comic space is going to complain if you say, hey, check out this comic book, which is now brought to life in AR, because it's cool, right? It tells more of a story. It makes it more immersive. But I do think, if you try to sell them hard on, hey, own this thing digitally that you already own physically, I think then you're kind of limiting it to a very particular type of collector. Although, you look at the success that VV had early on and some of these other platforms that are specifically essentially recreating old IPs as Web3 IPs, and you see that there is a market for it. So I agree. I think the market's slowed down considerably and we're kind of out of the hype cycle, but I think there's a very real value prop to digital ownability of comic books.
Awesome. Well, we got a little bit of time left here, so I think we have enough for just one individual question, or sorry, one group question. And this is probably one of the more tough ones to answer in the space right now, but we're going to try to attempt it. Maybe Matt, you can start us off with this one. So, how can we combat some of the negative stereotypes and misconceptions about cryptocurrencies and NFTs to bring new people into the space?
Either stop losing money or stop making so much money that you buy a gold Lamborghini and tell everybody about it. I don't know. But yeah, either way, we've got problems, right? You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't in this space. Like, oh, I told you it was all a scam. Oh, look at that guy, made so much money on crypto. Like, those are the two. I think we just got to, as communities and as builders, just build things that regular people want and show them things they can understand. One of my favorite jokes this year, I think it was this guy Giancarlo, who posted a lot on Twitter. He said 2022, and then in quotes he said, "Guys, we need we need to get more people on board. We need to make terms simpler. We need to show them things they can understand. And then 2023 says, best I can do is inscribed ordinals. Like, we just have these complicated things that are designed for an audience that loves complicated things. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? If that's who you're building for, if that's what you want to do, that's fantastic. But if you are not doing that, if you want to build something that's got to reach people beyond that sort of very niche small audience that really loves very complicated things on chain, we got to build things that are easy and that are fun and that are accessible and work the way other things in the world works. And decentralization means sometimes you've got to make trade-offs there, one way or the other, but that's the game. Like, build things that people really want, show people why Web3 is fun, why this technology is magic, and that, I think, is the challenge. We haven't quite done that as an industry yet.
I'll jump into. I don't think we can, in anything we say, change this negative sentiment or narrative. I think we can only lead by action. So I think what's been really good about the latest kind of layer 2 technology is we're able to kind of put a lot of the technology behind the scenes. And I feel like it's very similar times of when people used to have this negative sentiment on downloading MP3s for free because you're pirating. I think NFTs have kind of gotten that rep as well. So I think it's going to be up to us builders to think of creative ways to make it make sense and use cases that people can understand on a daily basis. And so once they start using it, it's going to be that moment where you make it make sense for the everyday user, that we could then change the narrative as to what people will say about how this industry is being used. And I think in time will tell. So I think we're early, but I don't think we're that early. So I think we're almost there. So word of encouragement for everybody. But thanks for having me today. I got to run to another call, but Nick, Spencer, always love hanging out with you guys, and great meeting you, Matt, Wizard, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks so much, Carl. Yeah, great seeing you.
Thanks for coming, Matt. Thanks for coming there, Carl. It's good to have you on and learn a little bit more about you guys and hear what you had to say about the negative stereotypes, because it's something that it gets very overwhelming. As the more you do it, it's something you have to deal with on a daily or weekly basis. And what I put it down to is, like, so long as you get love, you're going to get some that'll hate. It's like any disruptive industry, from Uber or even Tesla. Defy the odds, you get the hate, but then at the end of the day, you deliver a good product. And like we've mentioned a couple of times already, you do what you promised. And the best thing to do in these situations is kill them with kindness, deliver a product that people want, deliver a product that people can, get involved in and actually understand. Otherwise, straight up positivity, education, transparency, fostering good communities. And probably the biggest thing that we can do is just stop fudding. Like, that's a huge one to me. Negativity, it does spread like wildfire. So as a community, a broader community, we have to put it out. We've got to stop it and get people on board just by showing them the way. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. That's kind of how I see it. So yeah, kindness, positivity, foster that good environment. That's how I think we can really get over this hump.
Awesome.
Yeah, I totally. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Spencer. I can wrap it up if that's what you're gonna.
I was just gonna announce our winner real quick.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
And then let you wrap it up.
My thoughts, and then I'll wrap it up.
Cool. Thank you. So our winner today for the Satoshiverse NFT trading card, which is the Raise the Flag trading card, is FloridaJoe.eth or at FloridaJoe7. Congratulations, Florida Joe. Please send Satoshiverse a DM and we'll make sure to get you your prize. And Nick, you can go ahead and close this out.
All right. Yeah. So I do want to touch on this topic very quickly. So forgive me if we run a minute or two over, because I think it is an important one, and we don't usually get to these questions in the space, and it's always one that we want to talk about. I think, for me, the negative stereotypes and kind of the bad rap that this space has gotten has really been a product of people being, taking advantage of certain things within the space, and us as an industry setting a bad example for what the technology can do, and how it enhances. Again, what is the value prop? What is the thing that we're doing that's bringing value? What does the technology actually bring that people will like? And so, I think it really depends on what the industry is, or like what segment of the Web3 space we're talking about, that changes what the approach is. So, for example, for me, for crypto art, I think the biggest thing is education. I think people need to learn about and understand that there are digitally native artists who are super talented all around the world, who create in 3D, who create cinematics, who are just as talented as your, traditional painter, and go through all the work and all the trouble and all the programs and everything you need to learn to create a digital masterpiece. And the only way to really own that tangibly is through Web3 right now. And that is what Web3 does for that use case. And so for me, that's more about connecting with the artist, education, seeing things, awesome displays, and, MoMA, like what Rafik did, or what he's doing, at the Vegas, the Sphere, which is just incredible, and bringing kind of to the art space, bringing a lot of, people there, and not, necessarily PFP collections, which, for better or for worse, lack that substance. They lack that artistic, kind of, it's hard to go to an art collecting community that really appreciates art and force CryptoPunks on them. I know a lot of people love it, and I'm not, either way, but a lot of people don't love it. And it's hard, I think, to say, hey, this is the representation from an artistic perspective. But there is beautiful work being done in the NFT space that I think needs to get recognized, from an art side. So I actually think art is the easiest one. For me, gaming was the no-brainer when I got into the space, and it's actually probably the one that's gotten the most backlash. And I actually think gaming is a little bit complicated. I think gaming, whether we like it or not, is more about creating sustainable business models and sustainable actual technological use cases for developers to incorporate into their game that create a value add ultimately for the consumers. Because the reality, we're all kind of boutique or smaller studios trying to do these awesome ideas and really being on the cutting edge. But what's going to bring people into the gaming market is getting this thing back-ended into a game like Diablo or World of Warcraft or RuneScape or, CSGO or any of the other titles that Fortnite, millions and millions of players are playing around the world. And then them seeing, oh, wow, like I can transfer this for free through this third-party marketplace. Or, oh, I actually, my FIFA card that I collected in FIFA 2023 now allows me to play, as this youth player who's now on the senior team in FIFA 2027. And it's evolved over time, and I still own it. And now it's way more valuable. And I don't have to buy another skin just because they made a new version of FIFA, right? So I think actually, if we're going to make big strides in the gaming industry, our job is to create the use case. Our job is to perfect the technology, to experiment, to create really positive user experiences. But the needle's going to start to tip when, we get these big AAA producers to create really great games that are Web3 enabled, because they also see the value in it. So I think that gaming's a little bit tougher. But then, you look at all the other stuff, and yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's about providing your consumers, your community, as much value or more value than they put in monetarily. I think, we are so fortunate to have community members that are not only willing to pay hundreds of dollars for a product, because, I mean, realistically, most NFT collections that launched, 2 years ago and were used as kind of this initial Kickstarter, in a sense, for all these projects were in those ranges. So people who are willing to pay all this money and then have the patience to see the project through over a 2-year period, that's not your typical consumer. That's a super, community member. That is someone who you have to treasure, because those are the people who like really stand up the concept of Web3 and make it special, because you're not getting that, in other spaces from a Kickstarter campaign. Even though I think there's a lot of potential there, it's not going to create that same connection to someone that was willing to pay a couple $100 and be part of a project's community for 2 or 3 years. And I love that part about Web3. But then for me personally, it's doing stuff like this. It's having these spaces, bringing on leaders, continuing to show everybody what people are building. So for me, that's what really makes it special. Being able to hang out with you guys, hear about your progress, team up together on things like our launch, which everyone will be able to get those cool logos and really start to combine the products of our efforts. And I mean, look, the logo thing is super cool, and I'm super excited about it. I think it's going to be a really cool experience for people. But it's the beginning. Again, it's the comic book that's a recreation of past digital IPs. It's starting the conversation. It's getting collaborations together. It's working together to kind of create this space and to bring it up. And I think that when we do that, whether it's just more people feeling comfortable and not leaving the space, because right now we're getting people who were convinced about the technology putting it down and never looking at it again, and that's a big problem too, right? So we got to start by keeping the people in the space, and then we got to get new people in the space, and it's got to be positivity that they're coming into. And so yeah, again, sorry, I went 4 minutes over, so I'll wrap it up. So thank you all so much for coming. If you weren't here earlier, check out the pinned tweet. That has everything you need to know about the game. And before I close the spaces, actually, I should have said this earlier. If any of the other projects want to plug something or put a pinned tweet up there, please feel free. I'll leave some time now for you guys to close with that. But please feel free so that they can access the project and see what you guys are building, and it'll show up in the recorded version. So thank you all so much to those of you who joined. We do this every week on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So please feel free to jump on next week. We'll have some awesome announcements coming up in the following weeks and some really cool prizes for some of these spaces. We're going to ramp that up a little bit too as we go into the final stretch before our mainnet launch. So super excited. Thanks again so much. I'll shut up now and let everybody else talk. But again, thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having us on again, Nick. Absolutely love being a part of it, being able to connect with people from the USA, obviously over from England and here in Lithuania, Australia as well. It's all about fostering that community and having a good time, and all good for running over. Always happy to have a chat. Thanks everyone for listening in, and let's stay in touch.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Good to chat with you all.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Signing off. See you next week.